My name's Lucy Crane and I'm a geologist. I'm actually an exploration geologist that works in the mining industry. Whilst I was at school, I really enjoyed science and I absolutely loved geography. And I was finding it really difficult when I decided that I wanted to go to university, I was finding it really difficult to pick a subject. I saw the Earth Sciences degree at Oxford. I thought, it kind of really resonated with me because it meant that, our first year you studied biology, chemistry, maths, physics, and we did geology. As part of a geology or Earth Sciences degree, you actually do they call it an independent mapping project one summer as well. So we spent 6 weeks in the field. We actually went to the west coast of Ireland, which in the summer, still very wet. But it's brilliant because you actually have the time to go out and you have to effectively create a geological map and a 3D geological model of this package of land that you've chosen. It's just brilliant and it really kind of embeds all of those skills. I'd go away for a month at a time to Morocco or Ethiopia, and we were doing really early stage exploration. So we were looking for copper a lot of the time. Before we'd go away, we'd do a lot of planning. So we'd have an exploration license in a certain part of the country, and we do lots and lots of research on coming up with, okay, if we're going to go in the field and try and work out where the copper might be, how on earth do we do that? So we'd get in maps, we'd look at satellite imagery, we'd look at Google Earth data, we'd look at old drilling data for that area if they had it, and try and build up a picture of the subsurface. And effectively you come up with targets that you want to go and then visit in the field and take samples of to see whether they are actually enriched in copper or not. The other half of my job was kind of more on the corporate side of the business, which I didn't necessarily think would be anything that interested me that much, but I found it absolutely fascinating. How does the mining industry work? And actually, yes, you need to have the right geology because you can only build a copper mine where there is copper in the ground, for example. But actually, there's so many other factors at play that let you work out whether a project's going to be successful or not. And this is when I started to become really interested in, hold on a minute, there's a whole spectrum of how companies are operating in the mining industry. Some are really good, some are really bad. We tend to only hear about the bad news stories. And so I've started to become more and more interested in how can we make the mining industry a much more responsible and sustainable place. I'm working for a company that's exploring for lithium and other battery metals down here in Cornwall. And the reason that we're exploring for lithium in particular is because it's a key component of lithium-ion batteries. And lithium-ion batteries look like they're going to be the thing that are powering most electric vehicles. So as we transition away from fossil fuels and we want to decarbonise our economy, we need to move away from traditional combustion engine cars and towards electric vehicles. And so there's this huge global increase in demand for metals such as lithium. We're trying to do it in the most environmentally responsible way possible, which for me is really important. So in my daily role, I might have a meeting with the lithium and geothermal waters team, and we might be on site trialing a new technology that lets you actually extract the lithium ions from these geothermal waters. We do a lot of research and innovation with universities. So at the moment we're collaborating with a huge different number of universities and other industry players as well. So we might talk through one of those projects, which again could be looking at new exploration techniques using satellite imagery and machine learning to actually come up with other targets for us to follow up in the field. And then a lot of my role is actually also kind of around sustainability and communications now. A typical mobile phone contains 2/3 of the elements from the periodic table within it. Sometimes the impacts of producing these metals can be quite significant on local environments and local communities. And so we really need to start having these conversations so that people start to question where what they're using comes from, and then start to take some ownership of the impacts of that, because we're not going to change things for the better unless people actually care about what they're consuming. Lithium-ion batteries in cars, for example, quite often come in these plastic pouches. And they might have changed it now, but one of the key electric car makers, the glue that they use to stick these battery pouches together to form your actual battery, is so strong that by the time that you've spent time and money to actually disassemble these pouches so that you can then put it through processes to extract the lithium or extract the cobalt and things like that, it's not economically viable for you to bother to recover the metals within that battery. Whereas actually if somebody had thought of the design process, hold on, what's going to happen with that battery at the end of its life. We might want to put it into grid storage of renewable energy once it's degraded to the point there's no use in an electric car. But then we need to extract the raw materials from it. And if we just change the design subtly at that point, then you can do it. And I think just by having these conversations and talking about it gets it onto people's agenda and might make people think, oh, do I need to upgrade my phone every 18 months? Or if it's still working, shall I just keep it for another 6 months? And actually that's going to have a really big impact. And then once I've finished using it and I have upgraded it, maybe I should recycle my old one rather than just keeping it in the drawer. And, you know, it's those kind of small changes that do all add up to something much more significant. And I don't think we're going to be able to beat climate change and have this big energy transition in the time that we need to without those kind of conversations happening more. There's a lot of discussion about moving towards a much more circular economy, which we definitely need to do. But within that, we need to be having conversations and thinking about a whole supply chain. So yes, I'm involved in the production of the raw materials side of things, which input into your circular economy. But actually, we need to start designing things for a second life. We need to start designing things so they can be disassembled more easily. There is a lot of merit in finding a company that's doing something that you're interested in and actually approaching them out of the blue. I got my current job through sending my CV speculatively to someone, and that's how most of our team have been recruited as well. The extracurricular stuff is what I find keeps the rest of my job really interesting. So I'm still a committee member of Women in Mining. I was a founding member of a group called the Young Mining Professionals here in the UK, and just make the most of networking opportunities and chat to people. And what I found is that people are actually really incredibly generous with their time. LinkedIn is a really important tool, and the number of times that I've gone to conferences and you've spoken to people and they've said, you know, people make a flippant comment like, oh, you know, you should call me up for a coffee next time you're in town. Do it, follow up on it. The thing I can't stress enough is you can't just send a blanket cover letter to everybody. You have to put the energy in to actually tailor it. The industry is becoming so much more data driven and data focused that, you know, there's data science roles now, and we need a lot of geochemists. We need people who are experts in remote sensing and image processing and physics. And there's a whole suite of roles within the mining industry that aren't that traditional, walking around with a rock hammer and bashing rocks. And so that's making it more accessible to people from backgrounds who might not have considered it before, or who might not be, you know, physically able to go and hike around Morocco. I think that we need the next generation of people to come into geoscience, and those people need to care about the environment and need to be the ones who want to change the industry for the better. I think standing outside and criticizing something is quite easy, whereas actually, if you really care, then come and work in the industry and change it from within, because that's where you're going to have the most impact.